The 2024 presidential election is among the most unique in our history, perhaps the most unique, but maybe 1860 or 1800 might be more. So many things have happened. The two oldest candidates, now the oldest candidate, two presidents or former presidents running against each other. That hadn't happened since the 1800s. And now a nominee designate, if not an actual nominee, who would be the first woman president in American history. So this is an amazing year. So far, it did bring the Republican Party together. That the attempt on former President Trump's life brought in people who were initially not going to the convention, like Nikki Haley, to endorse him enthusiastically. And so it had a solidifying effect at the Republican convention. President Trump's sort of acceptance speech, however, inadvertently sort of mitigated or diminished that effect, in part because he went into his usual ad hoc discussion, which became rambling, and millions of people saw for the first time since they don't usually watch him. And so the effect is probably going to be minimal. President Biden bowing out of the race, particularly at the time that he did it, disrupts everybody's expectation of how the election was going to unfold. The campaign is now different. It was a referendum on Joe Biden's age and his ability to perform for the next 4 years as president. But now it's about Kamala Harris and maybe a referendum on the Biden administration. And the interesting dynamic, prior to him bowing out was that Biden could not be removed from his policies, but people focused on Biden, not the policies. Now with Biden bowing out, Harris can focus on the record of the administration, which has some problems, but generally has shown progress, and is an interesting contrast to President Trump, or former President Trump. Vice President Harris will be on the ballot in all states, in part because no state has reached their deadline for putting the name on the ballot. This is primarily a in-family process so far. The Democrats get to write the rules, and the Democratic rules allow for her to step in if the delegates support her, which they are. And so the state ballots access rules really allow her to go on, even though it's a late replacement. Well, normally this time during a presidential campaign is where the parties have their convention. It activates people who don't pay a whole lot of attention to politics, and that's where people start actually focusing on what's going to happen. So the campaign begins in August. Labor Day is traditionally the time where people start looking at it. And so we're going to have an interesting campaign where the Trump campaign has to recalibrate because they were attacking Joe Biden's age, and now they're the oldest candidate ever to run for president. Rhode Island voters, will, of course, have the right to vote, but the election really won't focus on Rhode Island voters because it's almost certain to go to the Democratic candidate. But there are a number of Rhode Islanders on both campaigns that are insiders and important insiders who will be very pivotal in organizing and mobilizing their voters. There are a few more Democrats than Republicans from Rhode Island in these campaigns, but Rhode Island has a presence in both. The 2024 election is perhaps the most pivotal, or what we in political science call critical elections, since at least 1980, when Ronald Reagan disrupted the pattern of Democratic dominance of national politics. And so we don't know yet what will happen, but it could be an election that changes the political calculus and political alignments for a generation. It's not certain that will happen because we still have the campaign, and this year campaigns matter. And we'll have to wait and see. But this is what we call a very important or possibly realigning election. This is the kind of election that might be exciting for everybody, and it might be an opportunity for us, not just me as a professor, to really understand why it matters who gets elected president, because the choice is going to be very clear, and people should pay attention and vote not the candidates, but not the candidates, but the ideas and the agendas and the policies, which is the way things had been for 150 years until we changed our system 40 years ago.